Alrighty, I have the 436-page medical malpractice lawsuit that Michael David McKee was running away from. We have that. We have the new arrest affidavit released today. Today is Tuesday, January 27th. Thanks to the docket. I'll put his link below. Please join his Facebook group. He's the reason he called to get that shocking affidavit where we learned so many things we had heard, potentially rumors, that Michael David McKee was hanging around his ex-wife's house, Monique Tepe and Spencer Tepe, for hours apparently while they were away in Indiana. He had been stalking his ex-wife. They divorced in 2017. It is nearly 10 years later. He was stalking her. Apparently he knew her every move. We're going to go through that. I've gotten documents or articles from McKee's past, different photos and stuff. So I've created this monster timeline about McKee to try and get clues of where he went wrong. Oh my goodness, learning that news today and other horrible news about what we probably predicted about their marriage, about it involving unwanted sex, unwanted relations on Monique's part, what she told friends, strangulation. You know, there is that statistic that says victims who've been strangled, a large portion of the time do end up losing their lives. So now we have all these puzzle pieces still coming together, still a lot of questions, but I want to talk to you about it all and go through this monster timeline with you that I've created. So we're about to dive deep into McKee's life to see what we can learn, the cautionary tale. What can we expect before this monster, as it were, struck down this happy couple, took away these beautiful parents from their beautiful young children? We're going to go deep. We'll kind of hit some points in his childhood, through his marriage with Monique. We'll hit a lot of points in 2025, this lawsuit. And prior to that, when McKee was moving all around the place, all around the country, seemingly unsettled, until we get to 2025, him running away from this monster malpractice lawsuit, which some people say, it probably had nothing to do with nothing. Believe me, after I went through these 400 and something pages, I see it wasn't nothing. It was probably the straw that broke the camel's back in his mind. I'll tell you why. I will explain it all. I probably won't put a lot of documentation on the screen, or maybe I'll overlay it. I just want YouTube to be okay with this video. I don't want to accidentally put any addresses or no personal information on the screen. So I'll load the documents in my Patreon. If you want to download them, look at the link below. Get them there. Let's start at the very beginning with this monster timeline. It was June 29th, 1986 when Michael McKee was born. So that means he will turn 40 this year, likely still in jail, still waiting on his murder trial. Not only that trial upcoming, but also the mega malpractice lawsuit trial upcoming. I'm sure that somehow plays into his sick thinking with McKee turning 40 this year. Maybe it played into some kind of clock in his own mind. As far as we know, he doesn't have any children. We don't know why, if there was a problem there, or if he just chose not to, or Monique didn't want children with him. We don't know all those details yet. We do know she left him, and we know he wouldn't leave her alone. He considered her his wife still, even though she left him years ago and is obviously married to the love of her life. What does the age play into it? McKee being 39 and concocting this entire alleged horrible crime. Okay, getting these snow squall warnings interrupting. Let's plod forward. Now, I don't know much about Michael McKee's biological parents, haven't found any info about that yet, but we do know he was adopted according to a couple of people who've said so. So by Wednesday, July 6, 1994, page 6 of the Times Recorder, this is out of Zanesville, Ohio, it hailed little 8-year-old Michael McKee. He was recognized So even as a first grader, and I'm not sure when he found out he was adopted, it started off as this little boy who held so much promise. He was a first grade student at St. Nicholas School. He received an honorable mention recognition from the Secretary of State, Bob Taft, at that time. It was the 4th annual Voters Registration Kids Poster Design Contest. Isn't this ironic? The slogan on little Michael's poster was, "Let freedom ring, vote." The man who would grow up not to allow Monique to be free, to live her life without harm, to go on and be a wife and the mom she wanted to be. Anyway, back then his poster said, "Let freedom ring, vote." It apparently depicted an animated smiling bell with arms and legs and tennis shoes. And more than 190 students in grades 1 through 6 across the entire state participated in this contest. It was sponsored by Bob Taft's office. Now, just 4 years later, on Friday, March 10th, 2000, also in the Times Recorder in Zanesville, as I understand it, not too teeny of a town. You know, some people are calling it a small, quaint little town, and people who are actually from there, oh, it's not that small. Apparently, McKee was in the 8th grade. He made the honor roll. So he started getting all these accolades. Friday, February 9th, 2001. This is 7 years after he was recognized as a first grader. Now he's a 14-year-old. He even made the cover of his local paper. So it was published again on page 1 of the Times Recorder. It was this besieged spelling bee article about Michael McKee winning that Zanesville City Schools spelling bee. It reportedly ran on February 9th, 2001. I even contacted them and got the actual scan of that article. I was really interested. You know how you look back and what makes a monster? How can you recognize a monster? A person like this does something so nonsensical in our eyes, not letting his ex-wife go after years, after nearly a decade. Anyway, besieged, McKee's correct spelling of the word siege earns his B award. It was written by Maggie Downs, and it says, with a confident voice, 14-year-old St. Nicholas student Michael McKee correctly spelled his final word, S-I-E-G-E. That 5-letter word was McKee's final hurdle to winning first place during the annual Zanesville City Schools spelling bee on Thursday. As the judge nodded and said, "That is correct," friends, parents, teachers throughout the room breathed a collective sigh. A second-place winner was Austin Wolf. He was an 8th grader at Roosevelt Middle School. He leaned over, what a gentleman. He shook hands and congratulated the winner, who was McKee. Now, for his part, McKee said, "I was a little nervous right up until the end." And isn't this ironic, too? He also noted that the word laceration was the most difficult word given to him during the competition. For him to grow up to become a vascular surgeon, it's pretty interesting that laceration was a difficult word for him. And the article continued on page 3A. In addition to studying the word packet, McKee had his own ritual to keep his mind active during the competition. McKee said, "As everyone else did their words, I was spelling all of them in my head to keep my mind fresh." As for what McKee won, he received $200 and the home trophy that will be displayed at St. Nicholas until next year's bee. So I'm sure that trophy's gone now. But it was really showing him being applauded. Moving on to Tuesday, November 30th, 2004, the Times Recorder noted that McKee, now he attended Bishop Rosecrans High School. He was the first quarter honor roll principal's recognition for 3.5 honor roll seniors. And then on February 24th, 2005, the Times Recorder announced that McKee's high school graduation was coming up and how he planned to become a surgeon one day. So even in high school, apparently McKee had his mind set. He knew what he wanted to be, he knew what he wanted to do, and he actually went on to accomplish his goal. That's what's so crazy. He went through and literally accomplished what he set out to do as a high school senior. And a senior with promise. On Friday, April 29th, 2005, this 12th grade graduating senior from the Bishop Rosecrans High School was named Michael McKee along with another student. They were named commended students in the 2005 National Merit Scholarship Program. These are pretty good accomplishments. I remember fibbing on some resume claiming I was a National Merit Scholar, which I never was. I graduated from college barely with a 2.7 GPA. But this man, he was this commended student which placed McKee among the top 5% of more than 1 million students who entered this 2005 competition by taking the 2003 preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship qualifying test. Unfortunately, all these book smarts did not translate to emotional intelligence or a good heart. You know, you hear different things about him being quiet or shy or introverted, but you also hear things about him potentially being perhaps not so nice, perhaps one of those really determined people, like I'm going to get what I'm going to get. What, by any means necessary? That seems like how it ended up, unfortunately. Now, this is where I still need more information. After McKee graduated from high school, apparently he attended Ohio State University. I don't know if that was around 2006 and what happened from 2006 until 2011 or 2012. So somewhere in these 5 years or so, McKee may have dated another woman. I saw a post on True Crime Mama. I will reference her quite a bit because I've learned quite a bit from her Facebook page. Please go over there and follow her too. There was a post where there were all these photos, I'll likely show them now, reportedly given to her by a woman who may have dated McKee somewhere in college prior to Monique, but the post was gone, so I'm not really sure what happened there. I'm not sure if McKee had any other girlfriends prior to Monique, but we do know that McKee and Monique somehow met at Ohio State University. I did show you this video of Monique singing happy birthday to Michael. I don't know if they're at Cedar Point. It's up in the Sandusky area, north kind of west Ohio. I see like roller coasters or something in the background. I'm not quite sure where they are. But it looks like people with, the scarlet and gray, the OSU gear. So I'm assuming it's around their OSU time, but I don't know the year.
Happy birthday, Michael.
So just from rumors, nothing confirmed, somewhere in there, it's like they became college sweethearts. I read somewhere else, not confirmed, that around 2012, Monique began living with McKee. Now, I did see different photos of them at a restaurant on social media. I think they were eating pizza, whatever. That was like the earliest I was able to find photos of them initially from 2012, them as a couple. Now, in 2013, Monique and McKee were engaged, but I've also heard rumors about Monique potentially calling it off a few times. And now that we see this arrest affidavit claiming he was violent with her, forcing relations on her, you just don't do that. Or, strangling someone, you just don't do that. So generally when a person becomes violent, it doesn't quite happen outside of a vacuum. You get different instances. Again, this is reminding me of an experience I've had with my ex, in no way comparing myself to the horror this couple has gone through. You can't help but think of things you've maybe suppressed. I've even suppressed things you don't want to think about. It can happen. And I don't know if Monique initially didn't turn to anyone for help, or just, if there's that honeymoon period where abusers are often like, I'm so sorry, I'll never do it again. I don't know if that's why the engagement may have been called off several times. But reportedly they were engaged in 2013, and by 2015, April of 2015, that's when Monique and McKee got married. Now, at some point, I looked up the data here. September 14th, 2015, McKee bought that home in Roanoke, Virginia, per a background report. Perhaps I'll put that up too. I got that from Crime Time Online. I like to always try and remember to tell you my sources, link to them below, and credit them on the screen when I can remember. Okay, so just a few months, 5 months after they were married, they moved down to Virginia. I don't know if they had lived in a different place in Virginia or that home was purchased at that point. However, just by March 2016, only 7 months after their wedding date, Monique had had enough. She got away from McKee. Her friends and family state that she did it, one day while he was at work. She got out of there, took the dog, according to McKee's ex-girlfriend. Monique took the dog, took all her stuff, and just left him. And by 2017, their divorce was finalized. I hear that part took so long. I mean, the marriage technically was 2 years, yes, but Monique leaving him by March 2016, I'm sure she was done then. But, you hear rumors about, did McKee not want to sign the paperwork, or, why it took so long? He was naming that amount she owed him and better pay him back or else get charged all this interest. Sounds like he was really being petty, and the ultimate pettiness grew to rage, apparently, and resentment. But by 2017, their divorce was finalized, and that's where it should have ended, of course. Their divorce is over. They had no children together. They had no ties. McKee should have gone on and lived his life. So it seems like maybe he tried. 2017 or 2018, that woman, she spoke of being in a doctoral program with McKee, per her TikTok video, which she's deleted too.
Okay, so crazy story time. So last Sunday, I get a text message from an old coworker that linked this article about a Michael David McKee, and my heart dropped because that's one of my ex-boyfriends, which is pretty insane. I was floored. So just wanted to hop on and talk a little bit about the whole situation. So I dated him around the end of 2017 through a good chunk of 2018, I think. So what I remember of him is he was just like a nice guy. Like, he was quiet, introverted, which there's nothing wrong with that. He was a general surgery resident at the time where I was doing my residency as well. And he was really nice. Like, there was no issues with him. He was always kind and respectful with me. I've been over his house. It's pretty crazy that you never know someone. But long story short, he did tell me a little bit about his divorce at the time. So, and again, I want to preface this with, this is his side of the story and what he spoke to me. This is not truth. This is obviously very biased. But what he told me was that one day he came home from residency and that Monique had vanished. Like, she took everything. She left the house completely empty and also took their dog. He was just left very stunned because he didn't see this coming, and he was like completely devastated. So again, this is his side of the story, his thing. Not even sure if it's truth, but I do remember him saying that to me. He also, another thing that I remember is that he didn't really talk about his parents. He did tell me he was adopted by an older couple, and he just, like, they were good parents, but he just never talked about them. He never talked to them. I would call my mom like every day. We have a great relationship, but he was just much more reserved. He never really, when I asked him more, he just didn't really want to talk about it, so I kind of left it at that. This is him. This is us celebrating New Year's with a bunch of my friends and family, and this is me right here, and that's him, which is crazy. He also has been to my family home. That's him right there. This is me and my family members. But it's honestly shocking, and I'm grateful that the Lord protected me from moving forward in that relationship. The reason why it ended was I honestly wasn't feeling it. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but he was just kind of boring, and he was very much like kind of surface level. There was no, like, I couldn't go deep with him, and yeah, that's why I couldn't form like a deep connection with him because of that. Like, I think he had a wall up where he just like could not go deep with like any conversations really. So that's why it ended, and I moved up north, and the long distance thing didn't work out either. I'm praying for Monique and the Tepe family and their children, but I don't know, I'm shocked. Also, guy aged like a banana, so don't judge me.
But she just basically said, yeah, he was boring. She dated him for a while from 2017 into 2018. He was boring. He didn't open up. He had a wall up, and she couldn't just like emotionally bond with him. I understand this violence that Monique allegedly went through. I applaud her for leaving the way she did. Again, she did everything right there, trying to get away from him. And the next woman the TikToker, by her saying McKee had a wall up, he probably really did have build up this emotional wall. Instead of, reflecting on his marriage and going to therapy, going to the wonderful counselor and saying, Lord, what did I do wrong? How can I make my next relationship better? What did I do wrong? It sounds like he turned in on himself and put up an even bigger wall probably with the next woman. Now this girl on TikTok, this woman said, thank the Lord he didn't harm me. She didn't speak of any abuse. I don't know if she experienced any maltreatment or mistreatment from McKee or not, but she just knew this isn't for me. And she ended up moving. It was a long distance relationship. It didn't work out. Thankfully, she got away from him. Unfortunately, the Tepes didn't. I cannot imagine dealing with someone so long you just want to be away from. You just want to cut the ties and wish them well and. Now, I did do a little research here. September 10th, 2019. According to my research, McKee's parents had deeded him this land in Zanesville. I've seen estimates as high as $1 million. I don't know if he truly owns that land or what. It's very confusing. I went back through and I saw all these transactions and it looks like it may have been deeded over to someone else. So who knows if McKee still owns land or not. But if he does, it plays into his defense now, because if he does have $1 million of land sitting somewhere in Ohio, that could be a valuable asset for him to use to fight his case, or cases as it were. Now, in 2020, per the background report, McKee at that point was living in Baltimore, Maryland. The Virginia house he had lived in with Monique has a sale date of November 23rd, 2020. So that's like around Thanksgiving time, 3 years after their divorce was finalized, more than 4 years after she had just left. Whoops, had to switch it up. More than 4 years after Monique had said, I'm out of here. So finally, he sold that house in Virginia. And I was thinking to myself, was he waiting there, McKee, was he waiting like 3 years or 4 years for Monique to return home? Was he just being a sad sack? Let me hold on to this Roanoke, Virginia home. Did it just have problems selling, or was he really just waiting? Like waiting for Monique to come home. It reminded me of that scene, in that movie about Tina Turner, where Ike Turner, of course, was very abusive to Tina Turner. And then all those years later, I think it was in the 80s or something, he is showing up and saying, okay, Anna Mae, like he called her, it's time to come home. And she's like, what? Like almost like I left you a decade ago. And Ike was like, all right, now it's time to come home, as if she would come home to him after 10 years. So that's what that reminded me of. Was he waiting for Monique to come home? But if he was, and if he was really scoping out apparently Spencer and Monique and everything about their life, he would have probably known this somehow. December 13th, 2020, that same year McKee sold the Virginia home, Spencer and Monique actually got married. That is what their memorials say. It gives the actual date they got married. So they got married December 13th, 2020. About 1 month later, January 30th, 2021, that's the date listed on the video titled Monique and Spencer, Columbus, Ohio. It was created by Rob Misla, the brother-in-law. Of course, I'm wondering, was McKee watching all this? Was he the kind that would get home from his job and drink away his misery? And did he never, meet someone? Did he compare everyone to Monique? I'm wondering. Now, in 2021, per a background report, McKee is living in Los Angeles at this point. Now, some people say, oh, he's moving around quite a bit. He's not stable. Maybe that's true. Some people say for his line of work, maybe a vascular surgeon, maybe that's a popular thing. So I'm not quite sure about that, but I know he doesn't feel settled. We don't see McKee moving on with his life and meeting a nice woman, settling down himself, getting married. Now, by July 5th, 2021, that's the publication date of that Monique and Spencer's wedding video. Okay, when that went up, did McKee watch it over and over again? We'll have to maybe learn that later. The very next year, 2022, per a background report, this is when McKee is living in Las Vegas. So he's gone from like Roanoke, Virginia to Baltimore to Los Angeles, and now he's in Las Vegas. And per True Crime Mama, she has photos from McKee's dating profile. I think it might be, I don't know if it's Bumble. Was Bumble around then? 2022, maybe. Whoever got these photos, the sender said it was from December 2022. So we know if he's on a dating app 2022, has he seen the fact that Monique and Spencer are married and happy, this beautiful, lovely wedding, and he's on the dating app like, oh, I'm still looking for someone? Now, that very next year, July 5th, 2023, we're getting into all these details of this more than 400-page malpractice suit. This man, I should really look up how to pronounce this. I'm just going to call him Gooey because I've seen that's his nickname. Gooey Schwantz. Gooey undergoes some kind of surgery. Dr. Michael McKee, he is there. He is reportedly supervising this PA, this Andrea. She's a physician's assistant. Although in the lawsuit paperwork, it does say officially Dr. McKee was not there as her supervisor. But it does let us know by July 5th, 2023, McKee was indeed in Las Vegas because also named in the lawsuit is his employer, Las Vegas Surgical Associates. Now, the very next year, May 17th, 2024, Gooey files a complaint. Now, in the complaint, McKee and one other doctor, they were initially called John Does. They had to learn who they were. Gooey didn't know the doctors' names, but told the court, okay, the real names will be placed in there later. It was a horrible thing. A catheter broke off inside of him, causing him extreme pain. Now, people are saying, oh, that's nothing. You know, doctors get sued all the time. I understand that. That's what malpractice insurance is for. But a couple of things in this lawsuit lead me to believe perhaps McKee had let his Las Vegas insurance lapse. So Gooey was asking for more than $15,000 for expenses, more than $15,000 for damages, a max prejudgment interest allowed by law, the cost of the lawsuit, attorney fees, more relief. So this malpractice lawsuit could really go into a very high reward for Gooey. He demanded a jury trial, so did the other doctor. And for lawsuits like this, injuries alleged, like in this lawsuit, a jury could award, and they have in comparable cases, somewhere between $500,000 up to $5 million. Now, Nevada does specifically put certain caps on the money. It was filed in Clark County, Nevada, and any pain and suffering can be limited by state law. That cap is nearly $600,000 in 2026. But at the same token, there is no cap on any medical bills or lost wages, any damages that Gooey may have received there. If he could no longer do his job or if he lost out on a lot of wages, the jury could pay him hand over foot for that. And Gooey, if you've been on my Facebook page, I've been publishing snippets, updates about what I found out as I went through the more than 400 pages, although a lot of them, you know how lawsuits are, they're duplicating exhibits and all this stuff. But you learn new things throughout each. So I published the fact that Gooey worked at the MGM, was a Brazilian native, but he came there to work with a lot of high rollers. He spoke multiple languages. He was on his feet quite a bit. And so he was a guy, it sounds like he had a great job, you know, keeping the big wigs, the whales happy. And this is where we learn Dr. Michael McKee effectively disappeared. He couldn't be found to be served, and it was complicating this case. So right on the heels of that, May 2024, Gooey filing his lawsuit, there is another lawsuit which could be attributable just a few weeks later to Dr. Michael McKee. Now again, thanks to True Crime Mama for this second lawsuit, June 7th, 2024, I did see Nevada Michael D. McKee. It's not clear why he's named in this lawsuit since this particular patient's surgeries took place back in 2018 and 2019 when I don't think McKee was anywhere near Nevada. It's this inmate, the plaintiff, Edwin Velez, inmate in custody of Nevada DOC. He had some kind of complications. Okay, so you have those two lawsuits going in there. June 28th, 2024, GUI's lawsuit is ramping up. The Las Vegas Surgical Associates, they get served. The very next month, July 13th, 2024, the physician's assistant, Andrea, she was served. Now you start seeing people answer the complaint. Everyone, of course, but McKee. I don't even know at what point in here he will eventually move off to Chicago. At some point in here, though, the process server who tries to find him in 2025 will realize, okay, they're saying he doesn't live here anymore. But back on August 9th, 2024, the PA, Andrea, she writes an answer to the complaint. She's denying all the allegations. September 17th, 2024, McKee is finally listed as a physician and the custodian of record and one of those treating the plaintiff, not only with a listing for Las Vegas Surgical Associates, but also for Valley Hospital Medical Center. So apparently, McKee worked there as well. So 2024, I don't know. As time was going on, I don't know if McKee was trying to date people or if he was just focused on work. It doesn't seem like work was going all that well. You know, we hear rumors about his colleagues not really having great things to say about him. So who knows if McKee could really derive much satisfaction or purpose or pleasure from work. You know, let's say if his love life wasn't going great, you know, sometimes people can get satisfaction out of their purpose in life. A doctor, you know, I'm helping to save lives, but maybe he didn't get much satisfaction out of it if he wasn't getting along with his coworkers. They didn't have great things to say about him. There's 2 medical malpractice lawsuits. So moving on to 2025, July 8th, 2025. So the background report says this is the recording date for McKee's Chicago condo. It sold for $400,000 on July 23rd, 2025. According to Realtor.com, it says September 9th, 2025. But sometime in July, apparently 2025, McKee was already like, I'm out of here, I'm leaving Las Vegas, I'm moving to Chicago. It was around that same time, July 17th, 2025, when the plaintiff, GUI, filed his motion to say, look, let's put the real doctors' names in here instead of just these John Does. So GUI again explained how he was on his feet often, working for many years as a butler at the MGM Grand Hotel and Casino. A Brazilian native, he was fluent in the language. He was recruited to cater to all these Portuguese-speaking Brazilian and European whales, as he called it. They enjoy high-end gaming. He worked in the penthouse suites and the high roller floors at MGM. So it sounded like he loved his job. In the lawsuit, it says varicose veins are a known hazard of his occupation. So that's when in the spring of 2023, his primary care physician referred him over to the Las Vegas Surgical Associates. And that's where Michael David McKee worked. However, and this was a little surprising, only a physician's assistant, he said, undertook the procedure in question on her own. That's why we heard in a different article, like, McKee didn't train his PA or whatever, and they're going to kind of argue like he wasn't her supervising physician. And the other doctor was out of town, and the other doctor is saying he doesn't know where he was. It's really a weird lawsuit. It says no physician was present at the time she attempted the procedure in question, a laser ablation of the varicose veins of GUI's right leg under local anesthesia. So apparently things went wrong. A catheter broke off. She was trying to remove it. It broke off, left it dangerously, was left there to float free in GUI's vein. It does say, court documents say, Michael David McKee appears to have been the supervising physician on the day that Andrea attempted the laser ablation. In her defense, I guess she's saying Andrea alerted the vascular surgeon who was on the premises at the time, Dr. McKee. So she's like doing this thing by herself. Maybe it was some kind of routine procedure, whatever. It didn't work. She alerts Dr. McKee. He was there. Dr. McKee determined the safest method of removing the catheter would be to transfer Gooey to the hospital and perform the procedure in the OR. So I don't know if Dr. McKee literally performed the procedure himself or a different doctor. So we're moving on with this lawsuit. It's September 2025, and we're marching closer to the date where McKee is so focused on Monique and Spencer that apparently he's gone to Columbus, to their home, at least more than once, twice that we know of. I wonder if we'll find out even more trips he might have made. But September 29th, there's an amended complaint filed, and all parties have been served except McKee, because he's obviously dodging this process server, or he doesn't even live there anymore. He didn't give them the correct, forwarding addresses. And that's my thing. People just say, oh, McKee, I'm sure he wasn't worried about this lawsuit at all. It was nothing. First of all, we see it wasn't nothing because damages like this, a jury may have awarded, Gooey in the millions. That's the first thing. Millions, not nothing, even if McKee made quite a bit more money. We don't know how much he made out there. Or also, if he truly had malpractice insurance, why would he be dodging a lawsuit? To me, it makes no sense. If, like some people say, and they poo-poo this lawsuit, it probably was nothing to him. If he truly had malpractice insurance to take care of it, first of all, not only why would he dodge it, all the other parties have this same attorney, writing their answer. The doctor, the actual practice in Las Vegas, the physician's assistant, they're all under this one lawyer. And she's, even in her email, she's going to say, I don't know who's representing McKee. If he had the same type of coverage, malpractice insurance, and money or whatever, as people are saying he has, why wouldn't he just use the same attorney and not worry about it and let her fight it like she's fighting it for all these other people? Something is different here. Or was he just so obsessed with Monique that he thought he could ignore it? I don't know. But these are all the times they're trying to serve him. September 30th, this process server is going to McKee in Vegas on this Winter Haven street. There was no answer. The residence was all quiet, no movements. The blinds were closed. Maybe he didn't live there anymore. I don't know. But October 1st, 2025, he's making another attempt to serve McKee at the same apartment. It says the process server heard the television. However, when he knocked on the door, the television was shut off. He rang the doorbell and knocked several times with no response. Now, was that McKee hiding? Was that someone else living there? Like, who is this person at my door? Who knows? Now, this is what I had gotten wrong in a previous video. October 3rd, 2025, and there's more with this. The attorney, this one attorney, Daniel Laird, he changed his name from being spelled with two A's, Daniel, to an A and an E, Daniel. That'll also represent Laird, who's changing his name later on the exact day of the murder. We'll go over that. I had assumed it was the Las Vegas Surgical Center that changed their name. Apparently it was an attorney. Now that I have all these details. October 9th, 2025, the other doctor at the Las Vegas practice, Dr. Peter Caravella, he was served with a summons and amended complaint. The process server, in the meantime, is still trying to serve Dr. McKee. October 9th, this process server is making attempt number 3. He's going to the same place. During this attempt, there was no answer, no movement. He left a contact card on the door. Later that day, that process server spoke with Dr. Peter, and that's when he's like, I have no idea where defendant McKee is, and he just disappeared. Now, I'm sure that's not common practice. If you work with another doctor at a surgical center and you plan to move from Las Vegas to Chicago, I'm sure generally most doctors working so closely together know where the other one is moving generally. So it's weirdness. October 10th, 2025. The process server is researching all online, and he's like, okay, McKee's medical license, it expired in June of 2025. He's calling the phone number listed with the medical board. It's a fax tone. He's searching all these medical license board sites. He finds an address for McKee on a different avenue, Star Avenue in Las Vegas, 2 possible phone numbers. He gets a fax tone for one, the other's not in service. So even living in Las Vegas, for that short time he was there, a year or 2 or 3 or what have you, did McKee even have 2 different locations he lived there in Las Vegas. October 13th, 2025, attempt number 4, serving McKee at this new address. But there was no answer. It was all quiet with no movement. The leasing would not provide him with any info, which I think is a good practice because, you know, imagine if it were like Michael McKee going to a leasing office trying to find out info, you know, about his ex-wife. What if he were a stalker? October 15th, 2025, attempt number 5 to serve McKee. Second time at the Star Avenue apartment. There was no answer, all quiet, no movements, blinds were closed. Okay, October 20th, 2025, another attempt to serve him. This process server spoke to the current occupant at Star Avenue apartment and said McKee does not live there, she doesn't know him. So now, November 10th, 2025, we're coming up to 1 month before this horrible crime. GUI's motion to serve defendant Michael David McKee, MD, individually by publication and enlarged time for service to process on order shortening time. It says this defendant, quote, is intentionally avoiding service of process in this matter. November 12th, 2025. There's a notice of a rescheduling of the hearing because this is like delaying everything, just trying to serve McKee. The hearing on GUI's motion to serve McKee, it was originally scheduled for January 7th, 2026, but it had been rescheduled. They moved it up to November 26th, 2025. How much of this did McKee know what was going on? We already know he's slick. He's a slick, smart, allegedly evil guy. If he was able to figure out where Monique was living, know when they'd be out of town, I guess. We'll get to it on December 6th for a few hours. Was he still in contact with her, threatening her? If he had those kind of, privatized skills, was he also logging on to Nevada in this case and figuring out, oh, I see what they're doing to me? This is what happens. So that very next month, after all these hearings are moved up, December 6th, 2025. Now, this is where I want to read the new affidavit that we got. Again, thanks to the docket for calling and getting this. I had requested it. Maybe it's in my email by now. I've put in so many public records requests. It says, detectives also recovered video of the same suspect entering the curtilage. I always look that up. I think pretty much, is that like the sidewalk? Curtilage, an area of land around a house and forming one enclosure with it. So he was all around the house. We talked about it. Neighbors said they saw him around that house in the days before the murders, or now we know it was weeks before the murders. The neighbors, of course, may have only known who McKee was after the murders, after he was arrested, and then thought back, wait a minute, he was hanging around their house. Oh, maybe they thought he was just a friend. It says detectives also recovered video of the same suspect entering the curtilage of 1411 North 4th Street on December 6th and exiting a few hours later when the Tepes were away. So they're out of town. These dates are consistent with the video recovered of the silver SUV and are consistent with dates which Michael D. McKee was not on the schedule at St. Anthony's Hospital. This is written a little confusingly. A lot of affidavits are written that way. I'm just now realizing, despite prior reports from 10 TV, that Michael McKee had actually allegedly been inside the Tepe home. When I actually read the affidavit, it says, detectives also recovered video of the same suspect entering the curtilage of 1411 North 4th Street on December 6, 2025, and exiting a few hours later when the Tepes were away. Now that's different. Now that's a bit different than what we've heard. Court documents obtained by 10 TV's Lacey Crisp allege that Michael McKee, ex-husband charged in the homicides of the Tepe couple, was spotted at their property weeks before the death. Yeah, see, this is a little bit, this wordplay. In the description of the 10 TV YouTube video, it says, according to the affidavit, McKee was seen on video entering Tepe's property on North 4th Street on December 6, 2025, and leaving a few hours later. By them writing, entering Tepe's property. Yeah, that's different. So everyone took this like, 10 TV, you guys were the first to get the arrest affidavit. You guys said McKee was seen on video entering Tepe's property. However, now that thanks to the docket, I got the actual. Now I see maybe why 10 TV chopped up that video. They chopped out the middle of it. It says detectives also recovered video of the same suspect entering the curtilage of 1411 North 4th Street, which is not, that's the area of land around a house and forming one enclosure. Okay, so maybe he was on their property in terms of in their yard, the roads within the curtilage of the development site, for example. But that doesn't necessarily mean in their house, and that's the way everyone took it. That's why I like getting the actual documents themselves. Entering the curtilage. Where? And exiting a few hours later when the Tepes were away. I thought he was literally inside their house. So now I'm seeing it just says the curtilage. Okay. If they could just say he was in the front yard. Was he in the backyard? Yeah, this is confusing. So now I see where the confusion is lying. But anyway, he was around their house at some point, obviously December 6th. And then it'll go on to say January 9th when they seized the silver SUV from McKee bearing the Arizona temp tag from the lot. This is the day before he was arrested. From that lot at St. Anthony's Hospital in Rockford, Illinois, where McKee works. Detectives noticed fresh scrape marks on the window where the sticker had been on the vehicle prior to the homicides. So it had been hastily removed. During the time, yeah, because some states, like in Illinois, we used to have stickers on the windshield and different stickers on the license plates. During the time of the homicides, Michael McKee's phone had been left at St. Anthony's Hospital in Rockford, Illinois, and showed no activity for approximately 17 hours. So I wonder if McKee took his phone with him December 6th, 2025 for that trip. But for the December 29th through December 30th trip, did he think he was so smart he left it at the hospital when he was not on the schedule? December 29th, 2025, no activity for about 17 hours. So what, you back up, so like what, 7 p.m. on December 29th? Did he make the drive 7 p.m. from Rockford to the Tepe house? Would that have taken him, what, 7 hours, let's say, 7 p.m., gotten there around that time, because you lose an hour, so he would have gotten there at 3-something a.m. perhaps. 3-something a.m. perhaps, the time they caught him on video, you know, that narrow window. 3:52 a.m. the homicides happened, and then not until afternoon on December 30th, his phone is showing activity again. So then it seems like he drove straight there, from what it sounds like, from what I'm reading, straight there, did the deed or whatever he did, and straight back almost without much time. Of course, you gain an hour coming back, central time zone, but that 17-hour window, he would have needed all that time with, well, the roads wouldn't have been, of course, as crowded in the middle of the night, but you know, coming back, there might have been some crowds, holiday travel, almost New Year's Eve. Coming back, he would have driven almost straight there, did what he did, however long he took, and almost straight home. Perhaps stopping for gas or food or something. We don't know those details. Then it says, more recently, while Monique and Spencer Tepe were at the Big Ten championship game in Indiana on December 6, 2025 with several other couples, Monique went back to her hotel room early in the second half. When identifiable friends asked Spencer why Monique had left the game, he told them she was upset about something involving her ex-husband and was going back to the hotel. Whew, this really made me feel sorry for Monique, Spencer, their children. She's trying to get away. She's at the game, December 6, 2025, trying to have a great time with several other couples trying to just have fun at a game. She can't even stay at the game. She goes back early to her hotel room because there's something about her ex-husband that was going on. So I don't know if this threat, you know, I don't know if they're conflating a lot of things together. I don't know when McKee allegedly told Monique, you know, I could take your life. I could buy the house next to you. I will never kind of leave you alone. All this stuff. We just kind of have a hodgepodge here. And I like things in a neat timeline if we could get it. But I don't know. This is what we have. You go through it. You see what you think. See, it's just saying another identifiable witness told detectives McKee had told Monique he could kill her at any time and would find her and buy the house right next to her. She will always be his wife. So my thing is, what made her so upset with what she was dealing with McKee so much on December 6th? I'm assuming she didn't know that he was around the curtilage of their home. Of course, I believe Spencer and Monique would have called the police like, oh, he's around our house. But Columbus police told us we don't have any reports related to McKee at that North 4th Street address. So I think there's a problem in the way some of this is being misinterpreted, but at the same token, McKee was around their house. He was around their house December 6th. Maybe some publications ran with, oh, curtilage, and they said enter the property. It made people think, oh, he entered their house. And that's what I thought at first, like, oh, he got in their house previously. He was there for a few hours, and I think that's why they edited their video. It might be gone now, but I took screenshots of the description. This is something else. No wonder that chunk in the middle of their video was edited out, because I was like, wait, what happened to the rest of it? Maybe they misinterpreted. Maybe they said McKee got in the house when he didn't. He was just perhaps around the yard. Again, another reconnaissance mission, like neighbors said, and maybe he was checking out, scoping out how to get in the house. I thought he was literally inside. Oh boy, so he does all this December, and then 29th, he's leaving his phone thinking he's Mr. Smarty Pants, Dr. Smarty Pants, going to the Tepe house, driving there, unfortunately doing what he's doing, going back to St. Anthony's, activity on his phone again afternoon, exactly noon or so, December 30th. That's the same date, December 30th, there is a notice of change of firm name on the docket for the malpractice lawsuit. I assumed it was the Las Vegas firm. They're the firm. Firm, it's not firm date either, like I said, it's a firm lawsuit involved with other individual doctors and a physician's assistant. The lawyer, that Daniel guy who changed his name, he also changed his firm name to Laird Law PC. So that's what literally changed on December 30th, the same day basically as the murders, the same day activity resumes on McKee's phone. January 5th, 2026, the lawyer Marjorie Kratzis, she's the one who is representing everyone else except McKee. She wrote, still no word on who or if anyone will represent Dr. McKee. And then January 6, 2026, they grant the plaintiff's motion to serve McKee by publication. It was entered January 6th. Now, 2 days later, January 8th, per True Crime Mama, McKee literally performed a nearly 10-hour surgery that day on a patient who would sadly pass away on January 20th. So he was performing surgery like he's allegedly ending 2 lives brutally, horribly, driving straight to Columbus and back from Rockford, Illinois, and then performing a surgery on January 8th, 2026. I mean, it's ridiculous. And reportedly he passed away. And then 2 days later, January 10th, 2026, McKee was arrested like we all saw. So, the future of McKee. Today is January 27th. As far as his malpractice lawsuit, there are dates on the calendar. The jury trial, I thought it meant firm date, but they're talking about firm as in a company. It was July 13th, 2026. There was the jury trial allegedly, but everything is, canceled, vacated per stipulation and order. There is an April 28th, 2027 status check trial readiness date on the calendar. There's a May 26, 2027 pre-trial conference, June 9th, 2027 calendar call on the docket still. And now we have this jury trial firm date moved to July 12th, 2027. But how will the murder trial impact this malpractice lawsuit? Of course, the murder trial takes precedence. It's like McKee won't make any kind of great witness for this malpractice lawsuit if it goes forward. Maybe they'll focus, of course, on the firm, the Las Vegas firm, the other doctor, the physician's assistant. McKee, who knows what'll happen with him when his actual murder trial will be underway, if he doesn't take a plea deal. I don't know when he's next expected in court, but he did enter a plea of not guilty, which is always common. He has this hotshot lawyer who is reportedly really good. Minash, I believe you pronounce her name. So we will see. Proverbs 27:4, anger is cruel and fury overwhelming. But who can stand before jealousy? Apparently not McKee. And I wanted to title this, if I did, on the thumbnail, The Thief of Joy. You know how they came up with that saying? Someone said, comparison is the thief of joy. Comparison is the thief of joy. And I thought, that's true maybe half of the time. If you're a person like Michael McKee, who obviously kept up with his wife, ex-wife. He didn't want to call her ex-wife. He wanted Monique to always be his wife. Weirdo, sicko. Oh my goodness. Just leave her alone. If he would have just left her family alone. Let her be happy. Oh, that's really disturbing. Comparison can be the thief of joy if Michael McKee was sitting around stewing oh no, I got this malpractice lawsuit, at least one. If he truly did let his medical malpractice insurance lapse in Vegas, he knew he might have been up a creek without a paddle, oh, it's going to cost me a lot. And if he's over there, I don't have anyone in my life, or, because he's not opening up, he's not being a kind person. Not everyone has great things to say about him. All this potential, all this promise, and I forgot to put the part in there somewhere. They said somewhere around when he married Monique or divorced her, somewhere in there, he cut off his adoptive parents. And part of me, I have no clue at all, but part of me was wondering, speculating, pontificating, did Monique turn to McKee's parents ever for help, and did they help her, and did he take that as a slight? Why did he cut off his adoptive parents? From what I've heard, they sound like kind people from, what you just hear through the rumor mill. He decided to go it alone with all this anger. Anger is cruel, and fury is overwhelming. It sounds like he had all of it. Anger, fury, and it says, who can stand before jealousy? If he had that trifecta of hate going on in his heart and mind, he did not examine everything he had going for him. He had a great career as a vascular surgeon, in spite of all these complications. Was he just not able to cut it as a surgeon, or did he let the malpractice lawsuits overwhelm him? And then comparing his life to Monique's, happy, beautiful, she moved on, met the man of her dreams, wonderful wedding, wonderful family, and he just kept comparing himself. When you compare yourself in that way and don't see the blessings in your life, comparison can be the thief of joy. But why not compare yourself to those less fortunate who don't have a condo in Chicago, a career as a vascular surgeon, used to be, I don't know what happened to him, but, tall, handsome, good looks and all that. Why not compare yourselves to some of his patients who would love to have perhaps the health that McKee enjoyed if he had great health? Comparison is only the thief of joy when we make it that way. Why not count your blessings? I like to count my blessings sometimes as I go to sleep. Thank you, God. I can make it around in the snow. I have gas in the car. We have heat. I have a roof over my head. We have clean, fresh, running water. We have food. Just those things I named right there puts me in the first world. You know what I mean? It puts me in a place where a lot of people don't even have that. A bed to sleep on, or why not be like the Apostle Paul? You know how he wrote, I'm happy, I've learned how to be happy whether I'm abased or abounding. So no matter what was going on in his life, if McKee would have just looked on the bright side, waited it out, I'm sure God would have brought him a wonderful wife. These malpractice lawsuits would have come to nothing, most likely, if McKee didn't let any insurance lapse, malpractice, and I'm not sure if he did, but I don't understand why he was running from this lawsuit. Was he just letting himself sink into this depression? Look what Monique has, and she's my wife. What on earth was going through his mind where he could not let that woman go and realize, okay, I messed up. I didn't treat her right. Let me move forward, learn from my mistakes, meet someone new, and treat her much better. It's so logical to me that I don't understand it. It's very sad. And hearing about Monique leaving the game, that kind of pricked my heart too, because I remember one time too when my ex, but this wasn't 10 years later, but still the time I was divorcing, it was I got threats, that he was going to come to my job and harm me. And I was so upset. I just walked away from my desk in Chicago, and, God turned it around. It made it kind of funny to me. I was so upset, and I was just running off to the bathroom to cry. And it's I was going through the door, and I face planted myself into the door trying to get out, and my makeup was on the door. So it was a moment of levity in such horror. But I just wish Monique could have experienced getting away from that man course, no fault of her own. She probably had no idea that, he's circling around their house like a shark. Like, obviously, he was stalking them. December 6th, why wasn't he at work? There could have been so many other things he could have done. Like, you're in the city of Chicago, in a condo, downtown. There is so much to do. So many more beneficial things to do. So many more people to meet. Like, open yourself up to meet people. Even if he went and just sat at a bar or anywhere, go to a bookstore or whatever they still have there. I used to go downtown by myself in high school. Just go. He could have met someone. He could have had a nice dinner with someone, opened himself up instead of like driving all the way to Columbus, circling their home all these years after she left him, like 10 years almost after she left him. He's circling the curtilage of their home, plotting, no doubt, how to get in. And then driving, all the way home? When did he come home then? There's so many still holes in this timeline, but I wanted to at least get this timeline together with what we've learned about the malpractice lawsuits and the women he may have dated. And now we learn how he was stalking around their home. And what else will we learn when we get, as more and more data, more and more witnesses open up and come in and we can fill in the timeline? It's just horrible. I feel bad for Monique, and especially, of course, Spencer too, because it's like always having to look over your shoulder. If she's just like knowing this man would never leave her alone. She's moved on, met the love of her life. Thank God for giving her Spencer. Thank God for the years they did have together. And their children. This alleged psycho is out there still fixated on her, still thinking she's his wife. It is not logical to my mind. Even if he did still, quote unquote, love her after all those years, he could have kept that away, given that to God, and just been in Chicago and stayed in his condo, tried to do his job to the best of his ability, try to meet people, and wait on the Lord, had patience until he fell in love again with a new woman, a new person that was meant for him, and perhaps go on to have children if that's what he wanted or whatever he was. People say, so much weird psychology going on here. Someone said he wanted to leave Monique's children as orphans. Like he felt orphaned, I guess. Like, that's a lot of psychological stuff that he needed to deal with. It had nothing to do with Monique. If he was adopted, if he was taking it out on her, I've had people do that where some people might say, oh, you remind me of my mother. And I'm like, I don't know who your mother is. I had nothing to do with your mother, but some people, they project feelings onto others that have nothing to do with them. And what did he project onto Monique and hold against her all these years? It's horrible. The more details we hear, it's horrible. Okay, so I hope that cleared up some stuff, even though there is confusion about whether he was in their house or not. I think it was just kind of misunderstood reporting at first, but we will get there. Everything happens. Everyone makes mistakes. Believe me. Believe you me. Let's get there, but let's continue to pray for those children and everyone, all the loved ones of Spencer and Monique. It's got to be so hard to hear these details and learn more details as everyone kind of puts in what they know about the situation. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. We'll see what else we can get. Take care.